The world went silent, but Africa heard the echo. It wasn't just a rumor. It wasn't just a whisper carried by the winds. It was a warning. A message said to come from the powerful halls of Israel, with the name of Benjamin Netanyahu stamped upon it. Stay in line or face the consequences. Whether he spoke the words or not no longer mattered. The insult was enough. The audacity was enough. And for the people of Africa, it was the spark that touched dry grass, ready to burn. In Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, a man stood tall, not with soldiers at his back, not with fear in his eyes, but with the weight of history on his shoulders. "My name is Ibrahim Traoré," he declared, "and I am here to say what millions have carried in their hearts for generations." He did not carry a script. He did not need one, because when truth rises, it writes itself. And when a leader speaks from his soul, the whole continent listens. Traoré's voice was steady, but behind it burned the fury of 1,000 years of oppression. "We are not your colony. We are not your pawns. We are sovereign, and we will fight for our freedom with everything we've got." The room fell into silence, the kind of silence that only truth can carve. Reporters lowered their pens. Cameras leaned closer, because what they were hearing was not politics. It was not diplomacy. It was Africa finding its voice. He leaned forward, eyes piercing through the cameras as though looking Netanyahu straight in the eye. "Burkina Faso does not answer to Tel Aviv. We do not answer to Washington. We do not answer to any empire that believes it can buy us or bomb us into obedience." Every word was like thunder. Every sentence shook loose the chains that history had wrapped around Africa. But then came the pause, the dangerous silence before the storm. And Traoré spoke again. "If you come for one of us, you come for all of us." Why risk such bold words? Why invite the wrath of the powerful? Because silence, Traoré knew, was the greatest weapon of the oppressor. For too long, Africa had been told to wait, to stay quiet, to obey. Foreign powers had carved her lands, stolen her gold, drained her oil, and divided her people. Even after the flags of independence were raised, the chains of manipulation remained. Aid tied to conditions, loans tied to control. Bases built not for Africans, but for the interests of outsiders. And now, one message, one threat had crossed the line. Traoré's voice broke the silence of centuries. "We are done bowing, we are done begging, we are done letting fear shape our destiny." He wasn't just speaking for Burkina Faso. He wasn't just speaking to Netanyahu. He was speaking to the ghost of every empire that ever thought Africa could be owned. And the people felt it. From the dusty streets of Mali, to the crowded markets of Niger, to the universities of Guinea, the word spread like wildfire. And within hours, the speech was everywhere. On WhatsApp, on Telegram, on X, not just in West Africa, but across the continent. Young men in Bamako raised his words like banners. Women in Conakry repeated his defiance in marketplaces. Students in Johannesburg turned his speech into chants. And then, leaders began to move. Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali shared the speech, his own voice rising in support. Mamadi Doumbouya of Guinea stood tall and said, "He is right. He speaks for us all." Hashtags began to trend. Hashtag Africa will not bow. Hashtag we stand with Traoré. But these were not mere slogans. They were battle cries, signals that Africa's long slumber was ending. The West waited for Traore to retreat. They waited for an apology, a retraction, a quiet letter, but none came. Because Traore understood something deeper, that sovereignty is not just a word. It is not just ink on old treaties. It is the fire that keeps a nation alive. And that fire was spreading. He declared, "Sovereignty means we decide. We choose who enters our land, who takes from our soil, and who dares to speak in our name." Africa was no longer a chessboard, no longer a playground for foreign powers. And in that moment, with the eyes of the world upon him, Ibrahim Traoré became not just a president, but a symbol that told every African child, every farmer, every dreamer, you are not small, you are not weak, you are not alone. The fire has been lit. The question now burns across the continent. Will Africa rise as one? Or will fear drown the spark once again? The answer waits. The world listens, and the story has only just begun. The opening had ended, but the echo did not die. From the streets of Ouagadougou, the sound traveled across deserts, across rivers, across mountains. And with every mile, it grew louder. Africa had heard a voice not of fear, but of defiance. And now, the question burned like fire. Was this the beginning of a storm, or the dawn of a new Africa? In Mali, the youth gathered in thousands, waving flags and shouting one name, Traore. In Niger, farmers left their fields to join protests, their chants mixing with the sound of drums. In Guinea, students wrote his words on banners, "We are not colonies, we are sovereign." Across the continent, his speech was not just replayed, it was relived. It became a song, a chant, a heartbeat. Everywhere, ordinary Africans were saying the same thing. We are done waiting. We are done kneeling. This is our time. But in the palaces of Europe, in the offices of Washington, in the war rooms of Tel Aviv, eyes narrowed. What was happening in Africa? Why were the young refusing to fear? Why was one man's voice shaking centuries of control? For decades, the West had relied on silence. Silence of leaders too afraid to speak. Silence of people too tired to resist. But now, silence was broken, and with it, the old order trembled. In Ouagadougou, Traoré gathered his brothers, Assimi Goïta of Mali, Mamadi Doumbouya of Guinea, and the generals of Niger. Together, they formed what the world would soon know as the Sahel Alliance. Not an alliance of convenience, not a pact written for foreign approval, but a vow, sealed in the blood and struggle of their people. If you attack one of us, you attack all of us. If you starve one of us, you starve all of us. If you threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. The words were not whispers, they were thunder. For centuries, Africa had been a chessboard. Colonial powers moved pieces, soldiers, corporations, politicians, while the people were told to sit quietly. Gold, diamonds, oil, all stolen. Borders carved by foreign hands, tearing tribes and families apart. But the people had never forgotten. And now, with Traoré's defiance, the memory of resistance returned. This was not just about Netanyahu. It was about every empire that thought Africa was theirs to control. It was about every insult, every humiliation, every drop of blood spilled under the boots of colonizers. The powerful waited for Traoré to falter. They expected the pressure to break him. Sanctions, threats. maybe even coups. But nothing came. Israel's government remained silent. The West's media downplayed the speech, refusing to amplify it. Yet the silence itself spoke volumes. Because deep inside, they feared what was happening, that the fire of Africa could no longer be controlled. The youth saw it first. In the villages, in the cities, in the schools, in the marketplaces, something new was born. No longer did they see themselves as weak, divided, voiceless. Now they saw themselves as heirs of a forgotten power, children of kings and queens, descendants of warriors who once resisted. A farmer in Niger said, "His voice is my voice, his fight is my fight." And a mother in Mali whispered to her son, "Stand tall, my child, Africa is rising again." And in South Africa, students carried signs that read, "We are the future, we will not kneel." Imagine it. An Africa where no leader dares raise a gun against his own people. An Africa where every resource builds schools, not foreign profits. An Africa where the pain of one nation is the wound of all. This is the Africa the Sahel Alliance dreamed of. This is the Africa Traore spoke for. And as the chants grew, the hashtag spread, and the marches multiplied, it became clear. This was no longer the vision of one man. It was the vision of a continent. The world expected fear. Instead, they found courage. The world expected silence. Instead, they heard thunder. The world expected Africa to kneel. Instead, they saw Africa rising. But the question still remained. Would this fire spread to every corner of the continent? Would Africa truly unite? Or would the old chains of corruption and betrayal hold it back once again? The answer waits in the hearts of the people. And the story is not over. Because when Africa rises, the world will never be the same.